Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're tackling something huge, literally one of the oldest and most fascinating mysteries of human existence, the big question of luck versus skill. I mean, when we look at highly successful people, billionaire CEOs, legendary musicians, groundbreaking scientists, it's completely natural to wonder, how exactly did they get there? Is their success the result of measurable, hard-earned skill, or is it simply driven by random chance? So let's dive right into this and look at what the data actually tells us about how we achieve our greatest outcomes.
But before we get into the numbers, I want you to genuinely ask yourself, do you believe in luck? Just think about your own life for a second, your career, your relationships. Do you feel like you're the architect of your own destiny, completely in control of the steering wheel? Or do you occasionally make big decisions based on a gut feeling that, hey, today is just my lucky day? It's a deeply personal question, and honestly, how you answer it says a whole lot about how you navigate the world.
There's this fantastic quote from Chip Denman that really hits the nail on the head. He said, "Luck is probability taken personally." And that perfectly sets the intellectual tone for our investigation here. Think about it. When minor random probabilities happen in our favor, like, catching the elevator right before the doors close, we call it good luck. When they go against us, we call it bad luck. We take these totally mathematical chances and weave them into this deeply personal narrative, treating pure probability as if the universe is specifically out to help us or punish us.
All right, part one, the survivorship bias trap.
We absolutely love to read books and articles about the careers of highly successful individuals, right? We're always searching for that magic formula. But as we're about to see, our brains are constantly being tricked by the data we choose to look at and the data we completely ignore. 90%. That is the staggering percentage of startups that ultimately fail. In business schools and in the media, we're constantly bombarded with stories of the 10% that make it. But we don't see the massive, invisible failure subgroup that makes up that 90%. It is a huge blind spot in how we measure success.
And that brings us to a really crucial concept called survivorship bias. It's basically a cognitive shortcut where we mistake a successful subgroup for the entire group, simply because the failure subgroup is practically invisible to us. Think about the way we idolize unicorn college dropouts, people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. We look at them and think, wow, the secret to success must be dropping out of school and passionately following your big idea. But we completely ignore the thousands of people who dropped out, followed their big idea, and totally failed. We're only looking at the survivors. To really prove how this mathematical skew works, let's look at a statistical hypothetical from David Aldis. Imagine we have a group of 100 people. Let's say we identify a specific trait, we'll call it attribute A, that's shared by 6 highly successful people in the group. Now, if we only look at that successful subgroup, we see that a vast majority have attribute A, so we might naturally conclude that attribute A causes success. But wait, look at the whole picture. There are 9 highly unsuccessful people who also have attribute A, and 80 completely average people who don't have it at all. By ignoring the unsuccessful folks, we completely distort our perception of what actually makes someone succeed. The takeaway? You absolutely have to look at the whole picture, not just the winners.
Section 2. Innate skill and biology.
So, if we can't just copy the habits of the survivors, where does skill actually come from? Are our brains just hardwired for success from the day we're born? Well, let's look at early biological traits, focusing specifically on auditory processing. This is wild. Even before we are born, while still in the womb, a developing fetus can actually recognize music from the external world. And after birth, newborns respond more positively to the exact music they heard repeatedly in the womb. By age 1, distinct preferences appear. Boys often prefer louder music, while girls lean towards softer sounds. The point is, this isn't some learned behavior. It's an innate, biological foundation that we just arrive with.
Taking this biological hardwiring to the absolute extreme, we encounter something called Savant Syndrome. These are very rare individuals who possess incredible, almost unbelievable aptitude and extremely specific abilities. We're talking about lightning-fast mathematical calculations, or literally being able to draw an entire panoramic cityscape perfectly from memory after seeing it just one time. They demonstrate skills that seem, honestly, almost magical, but they are firmly, deeply rooted in their unique biology. So how does this neurological phenomenon actually happen? Let's compare the two competing theories here. On one hand, we have the theory of extraordinary eidetic memory, basically photographic memory, allowing these individuals to consciously retrieve vast amounts of visual or numerical information. On the other hand, there's the right hemisphere overcompensation theory.
Research suggests that if left hemisphere functioning is decreased or temporarily halted, it might allow the right hemisphere, which is often tied to artistic and spatial skills, to drastically overcompensate, boosting specific abilities to superhuman levels. It's a really fascinating look at how the biological luck of the draw can dictate immense skill. All right, Section 3, the Harvard Grant Study. But listen, biology is really only half the story here. To understand behavioral choices, researchers tracked 275 men, starting all the way back in their college days in the 1930s, and followed them all the way into old age. They diligently tracked their medical, psychological, and social lives. This is arguably the longest-lasting longitudinal study on human development ever conducted, and it offers incredible, unprecedented insights into how our choices shape our outcomes over an entire lifetime. The researchers wanted to see exactly which actions led to a happy, successful life, moving way beyond just genetics or random chance. The study ultimately distilled decades of data down into 7 key factors for a successful life. Now, some of these are highly practical, as you might expect. Regular exercise, maintaining a healthy weight, getting a good education. But others are deeply psychological, like forming close relationships, and importantly, utilizing mature defense mechanisms. What does that mean? It means facing life's inevitable troubles with things like altruism and humor, rather than unhealthy responses like paranoia or repression. The data proves unequivocally that behavioral choices and emotional maturity matter heavily over a lifespan, often far, far more than catching a lucky break in your 20s.
Finally, Section 4, the psychology of luck.
So if success is this complex mix of biology, avoiding survivorship bias, and making good lifelong choices, where does that leave luck? Well, research suggests that luck isn't just magic, and it's not some random gift from the universe. It's actually a measurable psychological trait and a series of deliberate actions. Psychologist Richard Wiseman actually spent 8 years studying self-proclaimed lucky and unlucky people, and he distilled his findings into 4 key principles. First, lucky people maximize chance opportunities by building strong social networks and just staying open to new experiences. Second, they frequently follow their intuitive hunches. Third, they actually expect a lucky future, which creates this amazing self-fulfilling prophecy of persistence. And fourth, they transform bad luck into good fortune. The absolute crucial point here is that lucky people are actively behaving in ways that naturally generate more opportunities. Okay, but how exactly do they transform bad luck into good fortune? They do it through a fascinating mental mechanism called counterfactual thinking. When something bad happens, lucky people instinctively recognize how the situation could have been so much worse. They compare themselves to those who had it worse, which builds incredible resilience and helps them move on quickly. Unlucky people, on the other hand, tend to do the exact opposite. They constantly dwell on how things could have been better, accumulating this heavy, exhausting sense of endless misfortune. Literally, your mindset dictates your luck. Ultimately, everything we've talked about perfectly aligns with Louis Pasteur's famous thesis statement: chance favors the prepared mind. Yes, the universe is absolutely full of random probabilities, windfalls, and total accidents. But 2 people can encounter the exact same chance opportunity, and only the one who has prepared, cultivated a positive mindset, and built a network of connections will actually be able to seize it. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought to end on today. So, was it luck, or was it you? The very next time you experience a major success or even a devastating setback, I really challenge you to reflect on your own agency. Because while we obviously can't control the random dice rolls in the universe or our biological starting lines, we can absolutely control how we prepare, how we react, and how many opportunities we consciously create for ourselves. At the end of the day, you are the architect of your own success. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the world around you.